So, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for being here today. A special thanks to those of you who actually travel from abroad. It's such a great pleasure to actually see so much international interest in Vietnam. And I guess most of you here have your own Vietnam story. Some of you already been here and you keen on Vietnam, you'll be put some investment in place and you want to invest more. And some of you probably new in Vietnam and looking for the right opportunities. And for us, we would like to share with you my Vietnam story. I've been back to Vietnam about 2 years ago, and after spend about 20 years abroad in London and Abu Dhabi, and I have seen the firsthand how incredible potential Vietnam have to offer to our investor. And I'm very excited to present the story of why we think Vietnam is becoming the top destination for climate solution investment. So let's have a look at the overall landscape of Vietnam. Vietnam is central to Asia decarbonization pathway because of 3 main reasons below. Number one, I think Vietnam have a large forestry areas stretching for over 50 million forested land. And we actually have a very extensive coastal lines, over 3,000 kilometers from north to south. And we have about 200,000 hectares of mangrove forests. So this means Vietnam is home to a significant carbon sink. This diverse natural landscape actually is a crucial asset to absorb carbon emissions. That is really important for us to actually fight the climate change. And as you know, Vietnam actually lie on the long coast, and we actually very exposed to the rising sea level. Number two is a lot of speakers have talked about Vietnam, and I just briefly touch on it because we have become a major player in the manufacturing. We actually have export over $140 billion worth of electronics in 2023, and our trade to GDP ratio actually close to 200%. As we become an integral part of the global supply chain, a lot of company FDI in Vietnam require like suppliers, they need to be decarbonized and become more green. That's why there's a lot of push in terms of decarbonization in this sector, and Vietnam should be playing a major part in here. And finally, we also become a large agriculture producers, second largest for coffee, third largest for rice exporter. And agriculture sector actually still play quite a big part in the Vietnamese economy, and there's a lot of capital needs to decarbonize it because it requires a lot of resources from water and a lot of other energy. With that 3 factors, we believe that Vietnam is the right place for the climate investment because all the sectors from sustainable agriculture to forestry or from renewable to waste management, there's an urgent need for capital to really transition these sectors toward decarbonization. And what does that mean for investor? It means we have a quality access that with natural resources here, and also it's an urgent need for capital. That's why we believe that it's the right place for you to deploy the capital here. So moving on to like the what's going on internationally, we got a lot of tailwinds actually driving the demand for climate solutions. Let's have a quick look at the some of the global legislation. So we got the carbon border adjustment mechanism that actually called CBAM from the EU, and also the CORSIA for the airline industry. That legislation actually pushing a lot of exporters to EU to really reduce their manufacturing and carbon emissions. Otherwise, you're going to have to subject to carbon tax that be effective from January 2026. And the Paris Agreement Article 6, actually allowing countries to work together to really find a way to reduce carbon emissions. And we're very happy that Vietnam have actually signed an MOU with Korea, Japan, and Singapore. And we're actually working on the implementation plan to actually find a way for us to work together. As I mentioned about, Vietnam have a great natural resources, but lack of the financial capital. These other countries have the financial capital, but lack of the natural resources. So we feel it's a win-win situation for this country. So we feel this, once the implementation agreement has been signed, we think that the door will open for a lot of international investment in Vietnam. Second of all, let's have a look at the domestic legislation in Vietnam. So in Vietnam, as we know, Vietnamese government have actually aimed to be net zero by 2050. So we actually schedule to have our compliance market for carbon ready by 2028. And we've seen already in place that a lot of environmental legislation have already been implemented. So recently, the extended producer responsibility law have been passed. It means that a lot of manufacturers in Vietnam are now responsible to recycle their products. If they can't, they have to actually pay money to Vietnam Environment Protection Fund for their part. So it's a good, positive, very positive step towards greener economy. And finally, I think it is very important. We see the significant voluntary commitment from corporations to achieve their sustainability goal and net zero carbon target. But I think more importantly, I think domestically in Vietnam, the wider demand for cleaner air, better water, and healthier ecosystem is on the rise, and it's become an organic push for all these projects to actually being implemented. So the consumer actually demanding companies to be better at producing their product. That is why with this growing momentum, we believe that it is the right time for us to deploy capital here, because along with carbon credits, potential revenue as a revenue enhancer, we believe this is unlocking the prime investment opportunity in Vietnam. So we believe Vietnam, for investment in climate projects, I think we're in the right place, and at the right time. So that brings me to our VinaCarbon Impact Fund. So we established in 2023. Our aim is to lead Vietnam transition to more greener economy, and our strategy is really to drive financial success while having a positive impact on the local communities and the environment. It is not easy, but we believe we have the right recipe for success. Our strategy is we invest in leading projects and company for the green transition projects in the key climate sectors, such as agriculture, forestry, and waste management. And we believe that one already, when the decarbonization opportunity and the sustainable profits align, we believe that will provide a downside protection for our investment, because it's become immune from the market movement. Because for example, in waste management, it doesn't matter whether the market go up and down, people still need to have their waste to be processed. And what is the upside? I think for us, the upside is the rise of carbon credit market, because I think we believe that all our projects have a carbon credit element in it. Probably 10% of the potential revenue will come from here. We believe this is an additional stream of revenue for all the investment we're going to make. And why we think we will be successful in this strategy, because of the three main factors. Number one, I think over the last 18 months, we have been speaking actively to our potential investor. There's a lot of interest from the DFI, the impact investor, and our key financing partner. They're really keen on our projects, and for them, it's very difficult to find the right project, especially in waste management or forestry. So with us, with our expertise, we really hope to work with them to find the right opportunity. And second of all, I mean, we get a very strong government support. It's aligned with the Vietnam 2050 goals, and also Vietnam sustainable development. And finally, I think we believe this is the most important factor for us. I think we can leverage on VinaCapital 20+ years of local expertise, combining with our international partner, bringing the latest, the cutting-edge technologies for the climate technology to Vietnam, bringing the best international best practice. So we believe with this combination will really help us to ensure we execute these projects flawlessly. So just to conclude, that we believe that VinaCarbon will actually lead this green transition, and we're confident we'll be able to deliver the returns and execute this project successfully. So I would like to maybe invite my co-head to talk a little bit about some of our key projects in our pipeline.
Thank you, Tung. Hi, everyone. So I'm Tung, the co-head of VinaCarbon platform. And as Tung mentioned, in short, we are investing in companies and projects that have strong core business, strong return, and with additional potential revenue from carbon credit. So because the portfolio is a little bit technical, so I will try to keep it simple because it's a little bit technical for everyone here maybe. So the first one we focus on is sustainable agriculture and forestry. As Tung mentioned, we have like almost 30 million hectares of agricultural land. We have almost 15 million hectares of forestry, and we see huge potential in that one. So our now we have some pipeline. We have some principal official like agreement from the province to do the sustainable forestry platform in the provinces. So now we have assigned about 40,000 hectares of commercial forest, and the expected capital is about 90 million. So what we would do at the moment, most of the forestry in Vietnam, they do the plantation and then cut down the tree at the year 4 or year 6 to produce good chips and export it to China to produce paper. So it's quite a very low value market, and we are trying to extend the rotation age of the tree from 6 years to like 8 years or 10 years. So the tree will become bigger. So we will do some logging processing, timber processing, and furniture processing, and then we will extend the product to like wood pellets and biochar products, and we export to like higher value market. We target in the domestic market first, but we also target like higher value market like Korea, Japan, or Europe. So for this one, we would like to introduce our partner later to discuss further about this opportunity in Vietnam. And the second one project we are developing is a biochar production. So what is biochar? At the moment, our forestry company, our forestry partners, they harvest the tree and they leave all of the leaves, the tree arms, and the roots on the side and wait for it to get dry and then burn it on the open. So first is a big source of pollution, air pollution, and second is a big waste because all of them are resources. So we come to the forest, we collect all of the residual biomass, we bring to our factory and produce biochar. So biochar is very good material, had a lot of application, for example, water filter, for example, is a good material for cement industry or construction industry. But in Vietnam, we're trying to do it at organic fertilizer. So it's a very good additive to add into the organic fertilizer. So in Vietnam, after so many years of using chemical in agriculture and forestry, at the moment the land, the soil is quite low quality. So we are trying to use it organic fertilizer to improve the quality of the soil. And if you look into biochar, it is like the golden material for organic fertilizer. And also biochar can claim a lot of carbon credit, and carbon credit from biochar is very high value. Someone like Microsoft, Amazon is very interested in this kind of carbon credit. For example, carbon credit from forestry is just like 5 or 10 US dollar per credit, but carbon credit from biochar can go up to 100 and 150 US dollar per credit. So it's very high value. Our third investment is on solid waste management. So at the moment, most of the domestic waste in Vietnam are going to the landfill, and some of them can go to the energy to power plant. To domestic waste to power plant. But it's a big waste. So our thesis here is we are trying to classify them into different types of waste. The organic waste will be going to the biogas processing, and the recyclable materials will be going to the recycling plants. And the non-recyclable will be going to the waste to energy or going to the co-processing process. So with that model, we hope that we can like enhance the waste management system of Vietnam significantly, and it's a huge opportunity. For this one, we are working with the Dutch development government agency. We are applying for some grant from the government, from European country, to de-risk and to prove the model first, and then we will invest in the equity for some of the project in this sector. So it's a very excited and very exciting and very potential project as well. So biogas to energy. At the moment, we invest in on companies. The companies, let me introduce a little bit more about the agricultural sector in Vietnam. So pig farms and cow farms at the moment, they need to set up the biogas tank as a wastewater treatment, and that is a requirement from the government for wastewater treatment. And the biogas is released back to the atmosphere or it will be burned. So it's a big waste. So this company come to the farm, convince them that let me enhance your system and I will take all of the biogas to generate electricity. And then the company sell back electricity to the farm with a lower price than the EVN price. And this is a very positive business model at the moment, and they gain profit already. At the moment, they set up with the electricity then set with all of the big giant player in Vietnam like Hoa Phat, CP, Dabaco, CJ, and at the moment they have the portfolio of 8 megawatt, and they would like to extend to 50 or 80 megawatt, and we are really keen to support them to scale up. And the last one opportunity is about the extended nature-based solutions, for example, mangrove restoration, seagrass, and all of the other opportunities that Tung mentioned about the coastline of Vietnam. So this one is a little bit harder, huge potential, but harder because we need to wait for the regulation from Vietnam. So VinaCarbon is one of the representatives from VinaCapital in the forestry working group of Ministry of Agriculture to formulate all the regulation, coming regulation about carbon credit project for forestry. So we will be like very in advance in the policy sector in this one. So we will forecast our strategy next for this kind of project. And so for the extended nature-based solution and the forestry project, we are very proud at the moment. We are working with New Forest guys here. We are trying to explore the opportunities in Vietnam. We have a lot of synergy, not anything commitment yet, but we are trying to work together and see a lot of potential. New Forest is the second largest fund manager in globally. At the moment, they are managing 1.3 million hectares globally, right? And they have a lot of track record and experience on sustainable forestry. So we have a lot of track record in doing business in Vietnam. So we hope that there could be a great collaboration between the two organizations. So I would like to invite Sanjit to introduce a little bit more about opportunity in Vietnam in the sustainable forestry sector. Thanks, Sanjit.
Thanks. You guys have done a really great job. They've set me a pretty difficult task. I said 5 minutes to introduce the nature-based solutions and the opportunity in Vietnam for natural capital investment. And I'm seeing 4:30, so you owe me 30 seconds. I'm not even sure if we have, we do have something. It's already mentioned that, this is I want to mention that, up front, this is a very investable asset class. This is not new. We've been doing this for 20 years. Timberland Asset Management has been around for, arguably hundreds of years. Currently, it's a $300 billion asset class already, so it's very investable. This is not novel. Sustainable forestry management has been around for a long time. It's just now coming into its own in terms of the understanding of how it influences the stores of our natural capital. So how do we improve the stores of natural capital? How do we avoid depleting them and going into extractive uses of them that do not allow us to continue growing in a sustainable way? So that's not new. What I'd like to, I guess, maybe fill in what Tung and Kong have already talked about, very adequately, is that what is the approach that we would take? Understanding that the environment is changing, the understanding of the climate risks, hazard risks, the exposure that we have here in Vietnam and around the region to some of these climate risks. How do we take advantage of that as an opportunity and not simply as a risk, while still trying to channel and develop sustainably? So achieving those sustainable development goals, the net zero pathway, the zero deforestation commitments, all of the things that Vietnam has already committed to. How do we do that? We know what we need to do. That's been talked about a lot. How do we do that? The simplest way I can explain it is sort of this graphic. It's a mixed use landscape approach. That's what we would advocate. I think given the competition for land, one of the risks we face here is obviously you've got the Mekong Delta here under threat, but it is a massive supplier of food security for not only Vietnam, but the whole region. That's at risk. There's competition for land around the region in terms of, achieving this sustainable transition, this energy transition as well. So, when we need metals that we need to mine, how do we prevent that competition from actually, creating another spiral of unsustainable land use? So understanding how to manage land sustainably, understanding where climate mitigation can come from, where climate adaptation can take place, where conservation can take place, and also where commercial industrial uses can take place. That's what we mean by mixed use landscape approach. So that, in a practical manner, means we can have sustainably managed forestry plantations that generate the revenues that Kong and Tung identified. That gives you a very stable, very well understood yield, on your investment. Areas of conservation, whether that's mangrove areas, whether that's peatland areas, whether that's just pure high-value conservation areas, that can generate carbon credits. That is a boost to your returns. And then what we're not considering in all of this is, when you do that well in collaboration with communities and people who are impacted, whether that's for agricultural use or purely for livelihoods, that generates a massive ecosystem benefit. It generates not only jobs, but also ecosystem benefits that need to be valued. What we see these days are big challenges in terms of attracting institutional capital to this approach. So while it's not new, it's a very niche. That $300 billion is invested by a very niche group of investors globally. So how do we expand that, and how do we get all of you to sort of understand the opportunity, not only here in Vietnam, but globally? We think that $300 billion has the opportunity to get to $1 trillion over the next 2 decades. But that requires sort of an expansion of everybody's understanding of how to assess, manage, and price risk. Up to now, I would say the biggest challenge in attracting money to this sector has been the perception or misperception of that risk in the upstream sector. There's a lot of investment that gets attracted to, food security, agri-food businesses in processing and trading. Ample companies, massive global companies that attract capital. But in the upstream sector, somehow agriculture and forestry is kind of a, sort of the abandoned stepchild sort of thing. You hope that somebody else is going to take care of him. So that's what faces us today. We hope that's going to change, and we think carbon, biodiversity, ecosystem benefits, the understanding of these, that will start to attract people, together with what Tung introduces, the supportive environmental regulation that's already out there, both globally and locally. So maybe I'll stop there. We're at time, I think.
Thank you, Sanjeev, for your insights. Sanjeev, maybe you can stay on the stage and we can invite the VinaCarbon team. We have maybe 3-4 minutes for some Q&A, if you have any questions.
Thanks. I think the question is for the carbon team. Just quickly, can you update on the status of all of the 4 projects? Because just now, just on the solid waste, understand that you have some fundings from the Netherlands. How about the remaining 3? And out of the total 148 million US dollars, what will be the arrangement in the expectation? And then the last one is on all of the 4 projects. Can you explain a little bit more on the forest, the amount 90 millions, and then the output, the risk, how to mitigate?
Okay, I do my best. That's a lot of questions to answer. So I think I will let you to talk a little bit more on the sustainable forestry. I'll talk a little bit on the biochar and biogas. Maybe that'd be easier. Sure. So for biochar, we actually completed our feasibility study now. So we got our international partner from Australia. Actually, it's called BioCare. If you know, they're actually doing our final report on the capex required. So when it's done, we're going to get that to our IC, and we're going to hopefully get it approved. So in terms of capital structure, we need about $14 million for the whole project. So it really depends on who want to invest with us. Even a key anchor investor, we're happy for them to put in some of the equity investment. But for us, we do have some principal money to put in, but we always welcome. We normally try to do 30% equity and 70% of financing. It will really help us scale up the plan quickly. And on the biogas to energy, I think this we actually going to be an equity investor into this company. So it's been in operation for 5 years. It's already profitable. So the angle for us to come in and really help them to scale up. So at the moment, the status actually do a bit of valuation. So they share with us their business plan and financials. So actually on Friday, we're going to meet the owner again and really work out on how much loan they need, how much equity. But then I'll pass on to Sanji to talk a little bit more on the sustainable forestry.
Sure. Yeah, so I mean, as the guys already alluded to earlier, in Vietnam, there's 15 million hectares of forest, 5 million hectares of production forest areas. There's a huge potential there. If you look at the market, I mean, Vietnam, as all of you know, is a very major player in timber products, furniture, wood. But the source of sustainable wood to feed that growth or continued growth of that sector needs to improve. So there's a tremendous opportunity in that 5 million hectares. There's also 1.5 million hectares of protection forest, also just purely managed by state forestry companies. So there's a tremendous opportunity there to improve operations, to build in strategies for monetizing carbon. We also see in the downstream sector, as I mentioned, about $1 billion is estimated of wood that's sourced unethically, illegally, whichever way you want to think about it, that is made into wood products in traditional craft villages. So that's, again, another huge opportunity in terms of displacing $1 billion worth of trade that still could be, very much tied to what we've all heard about today with the stimulus for real estate, the urbanization, the demographic change. I mean, this is going to lead to a big change in the way the Vietnamese consume wood here, and the furniture that our grandparents wanted is not the same furniture and the look and the style and the design that our children and grandchildren will want. So that is again a tremendous opportunity if you see it as an opportunity.
Any other question? Okay.
I have the question on the fund itself. You're raising 200 million, but then in the footnote it says first closing by end of 2025. Isn't that another 1 year ahead, yeah. Right? So during this period, before that, you're mentioning that you're gonna use the principal money part to invest in those projects and equity and debt. Could you clarify a little bit what are the profiles of the debt providers and also the equity participations?
Yes, I think, look, the VinaCarbon have been very kind to us, to our fund, that we actually have some seed capital for us to build our track record. So, but it's not a lot of money to fill in all this the capital requirement. So for us, is to really put in some seed capital into some key assets to build our own track record. So when we have our portfolio ready, like you see the one we have in the pipeline, then where we're going to actually do a proper fundraising. So we hope to finalize our pipeline this year, and in 2025 we start actually do a formal fundraising, and hopefully we have a partnership with New Forest where we can actually do fundraising together. So it's make our business scale a lot better. So we aim 200 million as you mentioned, and we hopefully to close the first one 50 million in 2025, and hopefully we hit our target by 2026.
Okay, and
Yeah.
those will be the seeded projects in the fund.
I'm sorry.
The seed.
Seeded projects.
Seeded projects. Yes.
Seeded project is a fund, yeah. And the capital call is happen in phases, right? We don't have to put all the money in one go. Yeah. You need mic?
Can you break down the forest side, the capex plan? Because 90 million for 40,000 hectares, that's 2,000, whatever, 300 per hectare, which is not what I would have guessed for the cost of a hectare of land in Vietnam, which you cannot even buy, probably. But just have to leave. So what all is there, and what's your, let's say, what's your product plan?
So the processing as well.
Yeah, so it will depend. I think this 40,000 is more of an aggregate across a few different company opportunities. So it will depend a little bit on, how much needs investment actually in improvement at the upstream end, how much is required for potentially for processing infrastructure, for integration, on site, and whether or not we'll have to actually look at conversion of certain areas. There are certain areas, for example, that's planted with rubber, and whether that's going to be a tree crop that we continue to keep there, or that we swap that out. So the combination of that cost will depend on the site-specific sort of needs and the end markets that we want to serve based on the product. So it won't be a uniform type of product. For example, a lot of the trees that are grown here is acacia on a short rotation for wood pulp. We would probably look at extending that, as Tung and Kong have already alluded to. Rotation extension is one area of sort of IFM that we can use to sort of monetize the carbon. But then that requires incentives in order to do that, and a lot of patience and time in order to maybe shift the species as well, to species that would qualify under those methodologies. So yeah, don't have a specific answer for you, but it would be a combination of those things that we employ depending on the asset that we look at.